warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Rifyal Kalam M, and today on this video I would like to give some tips for you to become a good storyteller. And also at the end of this video I will tell you a story that will help you more understand about storytelling. But before I get started, I will give you a clue about storyteller. Storyteller is a person who tells a story that can engage the audience and make something clearer. Well guys, do you know that to become a good storyteller, you need guts and bravery to do it, so that you will be able to engage your listener? But otherwise, if you have social anxiety, you might not have much experience telling stories. Your fear of being the center of attention has probably held you back from offering more than a sentence or two at a time. Even though you might not be able to be a great storyteller, but you can certainly learn how to tell your story in the best ways by following some of my tips. First, use a starting line to engage the listeners. For example, you would never believe what happened to me today. Or you can use this: I have the craziest story to tell. By doing this, you can draw your listeners in right from the start so that they are waiting for what you have to say. It is because your job as a storyteller is not just to describe events, but also to make them interesting enough to be worthy of a story that you want to tell others. And the second, put emotional elements into your story. By doing this, your story will become more alive and you can also engage the listener's emotions. Whether you evoke happiness, sadness, surprise, or anger, it will help to keep the listener attentive. Third, don't rush and vary your rate of speech and volume. Go slow so that your listeners have time to digest what you have to say. You can also speak quietly or loudly in different parts of the story to add emphasis to what you say. Just make sure that you don't speak so quietly that others have trouble hearing you. You can practice these steps by recording your voice, or taking a video, or even asking a family member or friend about your rate of speech. And the last is ask and make your listeners to imagine. Another job of a storyteller is to paint a picture for the listeners. You can ask them to imagine something specific in your story. For example, "Can you picture me?" is a good phrase to get you started. Well guys, remember that even the greatest storytellers practice beforehand. Don't be afraid to practice your story multiple times before taking it out in public, so that you will be able to gain confidence and able to deliver perfectly your story in front of many people. Alright guys, just like what I have promised before, that at the end of this video, I will tell you a story that probably will help you to understand about being a good storyteller. This story will also help you to always remember about the existence of God. Well, the story began with a man who went to a barber shop to have his hair cut and his beard trimmed. As the barber began to work, they began to have a good conversation and they talked about this and that. They talked about so many things and various subjects. But when they eventually touched on the subject of God, the barber suddenly said, "I don't believe that God exists." Of course, this makes the customer shocked, and he asked, "Why do you say that?" Then the barber answered, Well, you just have to go out in the street to realize that God doesn't exist. Tell me, if God exists, would there be so many people hurting others? Would there be egoism, violence, hatred, terrorism, or wars? Would there be abandoned children? If God really exists, there would be neither suffering nor pain. I can't imagine a loving God who would allow all of these things. And then the customer thought for a moment, but he didn't respond him because he didn't want to start an argument. After that, the barber finished his job and the customer left the shop. Just after he left the barber shop, he saw a man in the street with long, stringy, dirty hair and an untrimmed beard. He looked dirty and unkempt. The customer turned back and entered the barber shop again, and then he said to the barber, "You know what? Barbers do not exist." "How can you say that?" asked the surprised barber. "I'm here and I'm a barber and I just worked on you." No, no, the customer exclaimed. Barbers don't exist because if they did, there would be no people with dirty long hair and untrimmed beard like that man outside. Ah, but barbers do exist. That's what happens when people do not come to me. Exactly, affirmed the customer. That's the point. God too does exist because people do not look to God for help. That is why there is so much pain and suffering in this world. Well guys, there is a valuable lesson we can get from that story. The lesson is that we have to believe in God and never forget about the existence of God. Because if we don't, there will always be misery and pain in this world. And if we once forgot and neglected about the existence of God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will also forget about our humanity, our purpose of living, and who we really are. Alright guys, maybe that's all for me. I hope you can get so many things and valuable lessons by watching my video. And I'm so sorry if you found many mistakes from my vocabulary or from my speaking. The last I say, assalamu'alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.